Despite all the noise and rumors surrounding his head coach, star quarterback Trinidad Chambliss was impressive and the reason that Ole Miss knocked off Mississippi State.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And also shout out for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America, all because of you guys, our everydayers. It's time to talk quarterbacks. Quarterback of the week, the best performance, the guy who helped himself with the way he played. We're going to talk about the stock risers, the guys who elevated themselves a little bit based off of their play in week 14, and then those stock falling performances as well. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use freely across the app. Man, Keith, there was a lot of noise coming into week 14 about, Lane Kiffin and the whole Ole Miss situation. And I sat there and I wondered, I said, man, emotions and everything else come into play a lot of times. And typically when you hear your coach might be leaving before you even get to the playoffs, that could derail some things. But shout out to Trinidad Chambliss, Keith. Like 67.6 completion percentage, 359 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns. He didn't allow the noise to derail him or this offense. And I think he started the game out 7 for 7. And I was watching the film back on Sunday morning, and just kind of watching how he started that game. He was super efficient, getting the ball out quick, anticipating throwing lanes, getting the ball out early before his receivers even completed their route. Talking about putting it right on their face mask by the time they get out of their breaks, everything like that. Then he got into a little bit of a jugular mentality. They kept going for the deep shot. Like him and Lane was dialing it up, and they kept trying to throw the ball down the field. But once he came back to hitting the short, intermediate throws, getting back into a rhythm, then he was able to connect on some deep throws and things of that nature, the back shoulder fade. Like this young man listed at 6'1", 200 pounds. They said during the game that he put in a waiver request to college football to return for another year. That will make him, I think, a 25-year-old draft prospect, a 25-year-old rookie. If he did get to go back in 2026, I personally say you played so well. Trust the film, trust the tape you put out, and come to the NFL draft. But this young man really played well, Keith. He played great, and I'm excited to see him in the CFP. Right, we talked about Diego Pavia yesterday and how Vanderbilt's such a fun team with the lights bright every time, every bright light situation outside of that Georgia fourth quarter. Trinidad Chambliss has answered the call in the CFP. Man, what would it do for this young man if they go on a run, either with or without Lane? If they go on the run, right? They go on the run and they win the national championship, or he just get to the semifinals, play well. Whatever the case may be, I truly don't believe going back to school would be the best situation unless you just worry about NIL. This young man's played great all season. And he played great again on Saturday.
Yeah, no, he played well, DP. And I would say this performance, if I had to put a word on it, necessary.
Yes,
and the reason I say that is because up until this point, right, and I think we talked about him, was it last week's podcast? I think we talked about him statistically, that he was somewhere around 14, 15 touchdowns, I believe, right? And it was like, okay, he's playing solid football, but hasn't had that explosive game. This is that first explosive game. He had 3 touchdowns against Citadel beginning of November, and outside of that, everything was 1 and 2 touchdown performances, right? Mm-hmm. Against Mississippi State, he had 4. He threw 4 passing touchdowns, 30 plus attempts, and you've seen him really showcase his accuracy and arm talent as a quarterback, right? Hitting, I believe he worked all 3 levels of the field. I think he stretched the field vertically and horizontally, right? Like there was no one on the field that he couldn't get to. I agree with you that I believe it was kind of the second quarter, right? Because I think they started off hot, and I think it was the second quarter where it was trying to take some deep shots and dial some things up, and it was just everything was either a foot off or 2 steps off, just different things like that with the wide receivers. But once they got flowing again, I believe what in the third quarter, they were just rolling as a team. So I agree. Trinidad Chambliss is my quarterback of the week. Also, in talking about Trinidad, with this resume that he has thus far, my actual question: what do you do with this, right? In the sense of, and I mean by this, and I think the announcer made a very good point. Is that I believe he's sitting at 18 touchdowns for the season. I think that's including the Mississippi State performance, right? 18 touchdowns passing, and I think another 6 rushing.
6 rushing, yeah.
He didn't start the season, so the Georgia State game, the Kentucky game, I don't think he didn't play, right? But you get into week 3, I believe, right? And so
Arkansas.
Arkansas. So he has a less than a season, I guess you can say, of big time football. But the young man has been highly efficient, and he's been effective at running this offense. And we've seen 2 quarterbacks come out of this system that have gotten drafted, and one was Matt Corral. One was Jackson Dart, right? Matt Corral, we have the answer on how that went. Jackson Dart is still a question mark. I want to know from your perspective, and obviously he still has the time he spent at Ferris State, right? Division II Ferris State, and he had to go back to that. But just big time college football, what do you do with this from an evaluation standpoint of evaluating Trinidad Chambliss and projecting him to the NFL because of the sample size?
Yeah, I think of course you watch every game and you start to extrapolate those reps. Like, okay, like mentally, where are you? Like, is the game moving too fast for you? What happens when what happens when the defense changes the picture? They come out in too high, you make your checks, your calls, your reads, then ball snap and they're in cover 1. You know what I mean? Or it's a 0 blitz, different things like that. Or they come out in single high, looks like middle of the field closed. Do you stick with the read, or is he reading it well post snap? Things of that nature. I think that's how I would handle it with him. We know the floor is going to be set for him as a runner. This is a guy that can scramble, but also you can use him in the design QB run game, QB, the zone reads, QB keepers, things like that. But like you talked about the arm talent, he had some throws in just in the middle of the field. There was one play where they had, I think it might have been a post and a dig route, and like he was staring at, because they were in the same proximity in terms of the routes. There was like a bunch set, and then he came to the dig route, and he just fired it, just ripped it right between ear hole, shot past the linebacker right into the hands of the receiver, who could actually catch it. And he made like a strong grab, athletic grab, and he was able to gain his balance and get a little bit of yards after the catch. I think for him, that's kind of how I look at it. I'm like, do you go back and try to, like, is this a lightning in the bottle situation, right? Like, I think that's where I come to it as a player. If I'm talking to him, like, hey, are you not a lane merchant, but like, are you a offensive or scheme specific guy? Do you have to be in this type of offense, air raid-ish, stuff like that, which we don't see a lot of air raid quarterbacks perform well for a long time in the league. Like, you know what I mean? Once you figure it out, like you figure it out. I think that's my thing will be with him, is just more so, is this lightning in the bottle? If it is, cash in. Like, go get drafted, things like that. If you go back to school and you don't have the season you had this year, like your stock gets worse. And I think that's
I've seen hypothetically, I think people were saying if he left Ole Miss and went to LSU with Lane Kiffin and then have another year.
Yeah, but potentially, yeah. Like
that's a lot of ifs, huh?
It's a lot of ifs, man. What's the phrase? If was a fifth, we all be drunk. Like, it just is what it is. And the fact of the matter is, you played well this year. Like, I don't have to if that. I've seen it on tape, on TV. You got the numbers. Like, you played well. I say, you know what? Go to Mobile and prove it's not Lane Kiffin in the offense. Go to Mobile and say, I can throw to anybody. I don't know any of these guys from a can of paint, but I'll be able to throw the ball accurately to them, give them their opportunities, and make plays. Like, that's what he needs to do. I don't think going back to school. I think because he had some medical red shirt stuff happen. So I understand if like he wants to, man, I missed some time, but yeah, I say go ahead, strike while the iron is hot. Like if you get like a grade that said 5th, 6th round, all right, fine, go back. You know what I mean? But if you hear 3rd, maybe even 4th, cool. I'm still good with that because I think going to the Senior Bowl or something like that will elevate you at least a round if you go perform well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then you still have too the playoffs, right? To see what happens in the playoffs, a couple big time matchups. What if your first matchup? I mean, it's possible, right? Because Ohio State plays Indiana. What if your first round matchup is Ole Miss versus Indiana, right? And you go put 40 on Indiana, and then you have to follow that up with a performance against Ohio State or something, right? Like there's different ways to kind of go through this in this process, I guess, to give yourself more data points to kind of make up for, missing the first part of the season, just being a backup quarterback. But DP, let's do this, man. Let's talk about some quarterbacks that raised their stock, right? Like which guys performed well this past weekend, which quarterbacks are we keeping our eye on to say that, hey, as a 2026 NFL draft prospect, you elevated your draft stock this past weekend. Let's talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment ahead of time. Yes, you get live spreads and money lines adjust instantly, but you get player props, updates as guys heat up. But for the 2026 NFL Draft, you can bet even now on who will be the #1 overall pick, from guys like quarterbacks Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, LaNorris Sellers, and Fernando Mendoza, to edge rushers and defenders like Ruben Bain Jr. and Arvell Reese. You can get in on the action right now. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action, visit FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Quarterbacks that helped themselves, Keys, and kind of were stock risers, in my opinion, man. I still don't know if he's going to come out. He might transfer, which I'm all for him transferring, but LaNorris Sellers played well against Clemson's defense, overall. Like he had himself a good game, man. He was 23 of 42, so like the completion percentage wasn't great. It was 55% completion percentage, 381 yards passing, almost a first down per attempt, 9 yards per attempt. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions. One was off of, I think, Nick Harbor, where the big explosive wide receiver had the ball in his hands. I think DB came and ripped through the hands and forced the ball to pop up, and another DB came and picked it off for a pick 6, right? So that's not really on LaNorris, but I like what I saw from him in this game, man. Confident in his drop back, showcasing the arm talent. That moon ball is there between him and Nick Harbor for, I think, like a 61-yard touchdown deep down the field. Doesn't underthrow the deep ball, but also showcasing the ability to get the ball out, get it to the short intermediate parts of the field, drive the football, which we know, and then play within the structure of the offense. At the end of the day, and I know people are still really high on LaNorris, and I get it. Like for somebody who's watched this team play a lot this year, the offensive line completely let him down this year. The coaching staff let him down this year. That's also why I want him to transfer out. You know what I mean? But he, spoiler alert, he's going to be a perfect pairing for me later on in the week. I got a perfect spot for him in the NFL draft. If he decides to come out rather than him going to a terrible situation, I got the perfect spot for him. But I think he played very well, and it makes me wonder. Okay, what will you look like with better things around you? You know what I mean? Like because a lot of times, Keith, I think going into the NFL, we see these quarterbacks like that play at great situations. Then they get to a team that is not a great situation. Like, oh. So this is what you look like with
when you
less
bad,
than,
with
a bad situation. You don't have 4 or 5 stars around you. You're not on the best team in the country. This is what it looks like, right? Well, we've already seen that from LaNorris. My question now is, what does it look like when you have all those things? When you have top tier players? And I was talking to a scout, and he was like, "Man, what do you think he should actually transfer to?" I said, "It's going to sound funny. Iowa. Go to Iowa. You're going to be protected. You're going to have a run game. And tell Nick Harbor Tell Nick Harper to come with you. You guys won't have nothing. You won't get in no trouble. You got nothing to do in Iowa, but focus on football and the NFL draft. Go to Iowa. Their offensive line's going to keep you protected. Run game is going to be phenomenal. Defense going to keep you in games. You bring your big explosive weapon. You'll get some traditional run game, traditional under center stuff. You'll be ready for the league leaving Iowa. You'll be ready for the league. You know what I mean? You'll be ready. I promise you.
DP, I'm gonna have to work my college contacts, man, and see if we can get you on the Iowa recruiting staff, because I don't think that there's been a better recruiter for Iowa football than Damian Parson over the past couple years. My guy wants to see a quarterback go to Iowa, right? Not just a quarterback. He wants to see a good quarterback, which
they have everything else,
all the schools in all the states. In the whole, I would have never thought that you would have campaigned for Iowa, and it's very interesting. The people, and you might have to do a show on this, DP, a breakdown of why Iowa, right? Like why you like Iowa so much.
They have literally everything to make you successful, but a quarterback. They got a coach. They got O-line, D-line, corners. They've had some sleepers at receiver. They can run the ball. Just get a quarterback in there. Let's see what this thing looks like. You might be in the Big Ten championship game putting up 35. Let's get a quarterback.
DP, the people want to know in NCAA, when you start your dynasty, right? Like your My Player dynasty thing, have you ever chosen to go to Iowa? Have you ever chosen? Yeah, I see we knew it.
I've jumped in that bad boy and me Iowa national champion.
That's funny. That's funny. Now, so stock rises, DP. This was a interesting weekend, right? And just as far as quarterback play, right? Like we talked about Diego Pavia early in the show and yesterday and things like that. And a couple guys, obviously, that stood out. Drew Mestemaker, right? And I think it'd be interesting for him, the quarterback from North Texas, threw for 350 yards. He's going to be does he go to the NFL? Does, he take that Senior Bowl route? Or does he hit the transfer portal and somebody try to go snatch him up and grab him, right? A school like a Penn State potentially. And once they figure out their head coaching situation, does he go there? So I wanted to highlight him just because he's a talented quarterback prospect, and he's a guy that just in a lot of NFL draft circles, people have been murmurs of like, hey, this young man can come out of nowhere, right? And you look at the statistics of what he's able to put out so far. Can he do some things? Can he make some things happen overall? So I just wanted to highlight Drew Mestemaker as a stock riser, because coming off a 350-yard performance, and then you're looking at the rest of the weekend, there were some good performances, some lackluster performances. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We both talked about Trinidad Chambliss, and then followed that up with a LaNorris Sellers sighting, I think is the best way to probably put it. So I wanted to highlight Drew Mestemaker also.
Yeah, I think because he's like a redshirt freshman, so we gotta wait a year. But he's he's getting.
I don't know why I thought he was I thought it was redshirt.
He don't play like a redshirt freshman. That's
okay. I thought people were discussing him. Yeah.
No, because he's going to be a guy that makes himself a lot like North Texas. Shout out to you, God bless. But somebody's about to open up the checkbook, and unless this kid is super loyal, right? Like he's just like, nah. I like where I am. I'm going to stay here. Things like that. Yeah, you think, like you said, Keith, Penn State, like if Trinidad, leaves and go to LSU or something like that. There's all, you do have Austin Simmons, but hey, Austin, I don't mind redshirting you or letting you sit for one more year. Let me bring Drew in and let him cook, or, any of these Power 4 teams that absolutely will need. Because I think what Sam Levis talking about potentially leaving Arizona State, does Kenny Dillingham go ahead and try and get him a Drew Mestemaker to replace him and things like that, man? This 6'4", 210 pounds, this kid can sling it, and his numbers are outstanding. For those who have not seen him play, 71% completion percentage, 3,800 yards passing, 29 touchdowns to 4 interceptions thrown this year. Also has 5 rushing touchdowns this year as well. So definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Keith, I'll close this thing out with Ty Simpson. And I know for those who watch the box score or scout the box score, you mean like, DP, what are you doing? First of all, don't scout the box score, okay? Like, don't scout that. That's not an accurate way of scouting. Watch the film. Watch what happened, man. This young man was getting his butt whooped physically. Like that Auburn got back there a lot, Keith. Like they pressured him quite a bit. And their center had a rough day. Like Alabama center had a rough day. He completed 54% of his passes for 122 yards, 19 of 35, 3.5 yards per attempt, and 3 touchdowns. But he also, the receivers let him down a little bit. He had some drops in this game. Guys not bringing the ball in. He had like a dime throw to Isaiah Horton, I think on like a back shoulder fade. And I'm like, Isaiah, you got to finish. You got to complete the catch on that. Like the DB at the last second knocked the ball out of his hand. I'm like, like that could have helped his numbers. You know what I'm just saying? But I think the way he played, man, the throw, the touchdown, one of the touchdowns to Isaiah Horton, he's getting pressure up the gut and off the edge. He just kind of, it's almost like Fernando Mendoza. He's drifting back, how he threw it to Omar Cooper, and he just lobs it. Just a beautiful little rainbow right over the defense in the back of the end zone. The throw to give them the lead late in that game, right, to Isaiah Horton on the 4th down. And for me, at the end of the day, like, yeah, the numbers weren't great, but the numbers are the numbers. Like, watching that game, the way it played out, like, once Auburn found offensive success, I was like, Bama, you might lose this. You might be in trouble. You know what I mean? Strike up the band. You might be in trouble. And he just kept going, man. And not only that, using his legs in a timely fashion. He had the big run down the left sideline. Isaiah Horton got called for a holding penalty that negated the rushing touchdown and everything from Ty Simpson in that game as well. This young man, battered, bruised, battle-tested, Keith. And that's why I say it's a stock up, because, he did, like, the past 2 weeks, he turned the ball over. He didn't turn the ball over in this game. Again, the number, the completion percentage, all that stuff wasn't great, but he still played a well enough game in a tightly contested game against your in-state rival in one of the best rivalry games in college football history, and you made the right plays when it mattered most. And for me, that's a key to me.
Yeah, I mean, all you need to know about if grading this Ty Simpson performance is that Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach ever, has said that Jordan-Hare Stadium, Auburn's field, is haunted. Right? He feels that way. And he's the greatest college football coach ever, right? What this Ty Simpson performance reminded me of, DP, is just a few years ago when Bryce Young was down there. Remember that? And then it was supposed to be going away. Alabama was supposed to dominate this game.
John Mechie, I think he lost
John Mechie caught the touchdown, and I think
he lost Jameson Williams for targeting. I remember that game.
Yeah, and he had to drive them down the field last second to win a football game. If you think was that last year or 2 years ago, Jalen Milroe, right? And I think it was like the 4th and 30.
Yeah. To Isaiah Bond.
Yep, and I think that was at Auburn too. Like this game is a wild game. There's a reason why you put it right up there with Michigan, Ohio State, as far as one of the best college football rivalries, just probably best rivalries in sports, period. These two teams in Alabama, they don't have NFL franchises. All they have is their collegiate teams. They don't have basketball. They don't have baseball. They don't have anything else but to just hate each other, right? And it all comes out on the field. And when you mix those two teams and those two fan bases, especially at Jordan-Hare, you always get some wild stuff. So I'm right there with you, DP. And let's do this, man. Let's coming up next. I have a conversation, because before I pick Drew Mestemaker, the guy who's a 2027 NFL draft prospect, not a 2026, right? I was going to pick Dante Moore, the quarterback from Oregon, with his performance versus Washington. But it made me think, right? I was doing a little thinking, just a little bit of thinking, DP. And I was like, let's have this conversation. Who would we rather take, Dante Moore or Ty Simpson at this very moment? Because I think both quarterbacks are playing good football. Both may not be athletically superior guys, but who will we take resume, talent-wise, and everything else? So I kind of want to have that conversation coming up next.
The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames named number 1 by Wirecutter by using the promo code Locked On at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code Locked On. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers and being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America, all because of you, our everydayers. Keith posed the question: who would you rather have? We haven't done would you rather in a while. Keith,
been a minute,
been part of the year. Drew, you said Ty Simpson or Dante Moore. Woo. Huh. Up until maybe 3 weeks ago, I had
our listeners are getting very authentic reactions, right?
Yeah, reactions, because this is tough. I love both of their games, man. I would say that's tough too, because they both have things I really appreciate. Right now, I would say Dante Moore. Right now. Okay. I think Dante Moore's just the calmness that he plays with, the collectiveness he plays with, right? He's never too high or low, doesn't ever really look rattled. There were some times in that game against Auburn, I was like, Ty, you good? Like his eyes got a little big. He was just like, but then I think one of the Auburn's edge rushers started talking to him, was talking trash. I was like, okay, I feel like that woke him up a little bit, like kind of got him out of shock, because he was just like, they were 17-0. Then here comes Auburn storming back, and like they couldn't stop the bleeding, right? It was just like a heavyweight fight. It was like, listen, we got cut, and this is a bad cut, and like we can't stop it right now. We got to find some balance, and kind of, especially after Jan Miller got hurt. When Jan Miller got hurt, their rushing game wasn't the same, like and stuff like that and whatnot. But I think for me with Dante Moore, I feel like he's better. I think he's a more accurate guy right now at all three levels. I think I love what Ty Simpson does at the second level between the numbers. His biggest issue right now is connecting on the deep ball consistently. It's either he always kind of slightly overthrows guys, so he's trying to find that deep ball trajectory and also the timing. Like, I feel like he holds it a little bit too long at times, instead of just like letting it ride. Just like, hey, get it out there early, send that moon ball up to the sky, let it fall like a rainbow to the hands of your receiver. He overshoots guys. And I think he leaves points on the field a lot of times doing that and everything. And then like that, I just think Dante Moore is a little bit smoother. I want to say polished, but a little bit more. I'm a little bit more confident in him right now than I am in a Ty Simpson. But they both have things that I really appreciate.
Yeah, so I agree with that last statement, that they both have things that I really appreciate. I think they're probably going to come in height and weight wise, right? Very comparable. And then you look at both of these quarterbacks, and that's why I wanted to compare them to kind of start the conversation. I know we'll probably do these comps even more. It's just because they're probably going to fall in the same bracket. I think Fernando Mendoza has probably put himself through the consistency, right, and the consistent excellence, probably been a bracket of his own as far as, what people and how people feel about him. And then I think if you're talking about more first-round quarterbacks that are first-time starters at big-time programs, right, should both make the playoffs and be solidified in that. And then from a height, weight, they're very similar too. And I don't think either guy has, and I said this, an athletic trait that's like an elite athletic trait, right? Whether it's speed, elite arm talent, anything like that. You really appreciate these guys' ability to almost operate in chaos and chaotic moments and then throw the ball with proper touch and accuracy and things like that. If you are a quarterback evaluator that just wants to look at a 6'4", 230-pound quarterback either have elite arm talent or run really fast in a straight line, neither one of these guys are going to be for you, right? No. But if you love quarterback play from a time and anticipation, and you like guys from the neck up, how they operate, then both of these quarterbacks can be for you. And I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to say Ty Simpson. And I'm going to tell Ty Simpson, which is, and the reason I'm about to say is kind of unfair to Dante Moore, but we talked earlier, was that earlier this show? Yeah, we talked earlier this show about seeing quarterbacks operate in chaotic situations or not great situations. I think Alabama receiver core is good. I don't know if it's great, right? And I'm watching Ty kind of will some things together. And I'm right now, I just love his mental, and coming off of that Auburn game, I have a lot more respect for the grit part of it. And not saying that Dante Moore doesn't. To me, these games, when you look at resumes, this Auburn game for Ty Simpson was, in my opinion, the Penn State game for Dante Moore, to where there were things that didn't go right, and you had to dig deep and kind of, like you had to pull yourself together, right? And be like, yo, we got to figure this thing out. So I'm going to go with Ty. I'm going to give Ty Simpson a slight nod.
Yeah, I think, even to your point, I'll flip it to Dante Moore. I mean, up until maybe this weekend, I think they got their starting two receivers back. He had been missing his top two guys, right?
Yeah.
Like he was, what I'm saying, to carry more.
Right, hurt. And
he'd been hurt since the off season. Like, man, what this offense could have been if they had Evan Stewart out there to carry him more, Kenyon Sadiq, Gary Bryant Jr. Yeah, they might have gone undefeated. They might not have lost to Indiana. You know what I mean? At home, if they had their full assortment of weapons. But I think, for those who, because it's been, again, it's always a conversation. Like, man, Ty Simpson go back, Dante Moore go back, and I'm like, what's the benefit? Like, what's the benefit of going back? Like, I no, go ahead and into the draft, because I look at Dante Moore and I look at him as a guy that doesn't have to. He doesn't have to sit long. That's how I look at the Dante Moore. Ty Simpson at times for me, like, he stares down reads, and I want him to to come off that. Like, as I was watching the Eastern Illinois tape, and I talked about on Watch Tape Wednesday last week, he threw a pick, and it was a great play by the defender because he had to go up and get it. But it's like, Ty, you took him into the throwing lane. Like, if you look him off and move him with your eyes, like, he's got to be consistent with the eye manipulation, where I see a little bit more of that with Dante Moore and everything. But I think both of these guys, to me, I have both of them with first round grades. Those top three: Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, and Ty Simpson. And I think, shout out to our boy Jordan Reed over at ESPN. I think Jordan, he was talking, I think he has Dante Moore as his QB1. I think he has him over Fernando Mendoza and everything. Because listen, I love all these guys' game, and I think all of them could be franchise quarterbacks if you put the right stuff around them, put them in the right situation. You got your next quarterback for next 10, 15 years. In my opinion, with Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, and Dante Moore. NFL, just do right by these guys. If you do right, you're gonna hit big.
Yep, and if you don't do right by them, just wait. They'll leave your team and somebody else to do right by them, right?
Look at Sam Darnold.
That's what we've seen in the NFL with the NFL process. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Guys, on tomorrow's show, we just watch the tape Wednesday. We're gonna take 3 players, watch the film, bring our scouting notes on what we saw from them on tape and what to look forward to going forward. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.